Okay, this is kind of day 3 maybe. Been dragging butt on this project the whole time pretty much. So I'm going to try to get something done today, even though it's going to be 94 degrees out with the heat index over 100 degrees. And one thing I did was this wire was just here to take up space, to put a screw through here so it would bite. But I put in a tilt column here, and the HFs did not come with tilt columns. This came out of a DX. I believe it was an 89 to a 91, and I suspect it was probably a 90 or a 91 because it didn't have seat belts in the pillars. It had it in the doors. Because I needed a window regulator, and I wasn't sure if it was the same part. But anyway, installed the tilt steering wheel, and I'm not happy with it at all, because at the lowest setting, it is actually higher than what it was with the stock. So now when I'm looking down the road, I'm seeing, which I haven't been looking down the road, you haven't driven it, but if I was, I'd be looking at steering wheel. This steering wheel for me needs to be down to like here. I would like it. And it only goes up, and you see it starts to move, the whole cluster and everything. So I was probably going to have to resort to putting the old one back, which is right there. And for me to get it off, you have to pop this button off with a screwdriver. That, I think, is a 19mm nut. Undo that with a breaker bar. I have it locked with the key out in order to not have to hold the steering wheel. That's probably not a good idea, because it maybe even puts too much torque on the lock cylinder of the ignition switch. I got the whole entire steering column with the wiring harness and an extra ignition switch. So if this one goes bad, it's just be a swap, which is fairly simple. And once you take this off, you've got these two switches. Here is one single unit with 2 screws in the top and bottom. That comes off. There's 3 screws to take this off, and then there's 6 attachment points under here, along with wherever that knuckle is down there. And also there's the plastic that goes around in a couple of clips. And I had spray painted my clips just to make them look nice. And they actually held up. Did that a couple years ago. So what I did find, because suspension and steering is in the same chapter, I happened to find an illustration of this in my Chilton's manual. And what I found was there's a tilt lock plate and adjusting bolt. And I'm really hoping that I have that on this column, and I have no reason to suspect otherwise. And then you can actually see here, so you'd end up taking off those 2 clips I just showed you. There's a plastic push pin you pull out. This whole plastic cover comes off. It's split down the back, and it's probably somewhere down on the floor. And then you've got 2 nuts here and 2 bolts there, and I'm pretty sure 2 more here. So there's 6 total, and that's about all you really need to do. They don't show there's a screw here and a screw down at the bottom, and that's for the switches that go on there. They don't show that on this one for whatever reason. So anyway, and then steering joint, that's what that's called, I guess. So I'm hoping that whoever had the car before it hit the junkyard had adjusted it very high. And I guess I'm just going to back that off, or this one off, and adjust it. I don't know if I can see up in there or not. I don't know where that's at, unless that's it right there. Yeah, that looks like what I'm looking at. Come on, focus. So I'm thinking that that's the adjusting bolt right there. And then I don't know what that is. But maybe that's a nice weld. Maybe I will finally solve my problem on this. So, now that that's done, this is the brake booster from the Integra that accepts a 1-inch master cylinder, and that may or may not go on. I may just upgrade to a stock 5th generation Civic master cylinder, which would increase it by 1/8 of an inch diameter to go from a 13/16 to a 15/16. I used the crow's foot on these, and they broke free. I used a breaker bar, I think like an 18-inch, 3/8 diameter, and just bam, gave it a quick hit and broke it free. And that sucker was on there. I don't know how to get rid of these clips. I know you gotta slide them out, and probably maybe you push down on here. I'm sure there's a simple maneuver to get these off, but I'm not very good at it. See the original color here. You can also see the original color up there. Yeah, anyway. So this isn't going to be hard to get off, but this probably is, and I'd like to get this off without damaging it. And I think you're supposed to replace these clips anyway, but I prefer to not have to buy them if I don't have to. But they could be a little pricey. I doubt it though. Probably just $1 or $2. I took out the shock out of the top, removed these 2 nuts, which I will put back on right now, and removed the bolt out of the bottom, which that's a completely different base versus the other shock that I have, or the strut. And I have the compressor for this, but I cannot get this out because it will not clear the wheel well without me pushing down on this somehow or detaching it. So I'm probably going to detach it here. But you definitely want to break these bolts free up here, up front. I learned that when taking these out of the junkyard. You kind of want to work your way back. So I'll probably break those free at least before I start to remove these. And I probably will even break these free as well, or maybe not, because I've got an impact compressor here. I'm not going to worry about those. So this all should be coming off today, hopefully. And then I'm just going to gravity bleed the master cylinder out. In all 4 sides, I will eventually gravity bleed all of them out and get new fluid in, and then I will pump it back up because the fluid is very nasty. So new fluid and new lines. I may even get new calipers up front, and my braking should be back to original or better condition. Energy suspension parts. This is the next issue I'm having. By reading the directions, I believe I understand this as you're supposed to leave. The only thing you're going to replace in this rear trailing arm bushing is the rubber with the polyurethane. You retain the original outer ring and the dog bone, which is offset. That's how I understand it. I don't know if that's correct, but that's how I'm interpreting it. So I need to figure out a way to get all this rubber out without scoring or scratching this sleeve. And the only thing I can think of is fire. I'm going to have to torch it out. So I'll have to take this outside. I'll have to remove the emergency brake cable and get it out of the way so that I don't damage the housing. Because I'd be very ticked off if I did that, because I had to find this to begin with, because this is a coupe, and I had to take extra care not to damage these, and what a pain these are to remove. So that's going to be on the agenda today, so I'll have a pretty full day. If I get that much done, I will be happy. And on to the next bit. So not really day 3, but that's what I'm calling it.